So my family moved around quite a bit when I was growing up, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong. And so, it was basically a masterclass in resilience as a young child because I was constantly walking into new schools, often new countries and cultures, and I needed to find my new group of friends, figure it out. How does this school work? And gave me a global perspective. It made me very adaptable. I mean, still to this day, you can throw me into any room. I'll find something to talk to with pretty much anyone. Could be a brick wall. I'm ready to go. But oftentimes I found that I felt a bit lonely because I always felt like an outsider. It didn't matter whether I was in the States or overseas. I just didn't quite feel like I fit in. Now there's a name for it, actually. It's called a third culture child. So I was a third culture child. I think the silver lining in that is that it gave me a real strong sense of self because I really had to rely on myself a lot of those times when I didn't have friends. And I found myself becoming more and more comfortable in uncomfortable situations, ambiguous situations. And you and I both know that's what you do as an entrepreneur. You have to sort of operate not knowing all the answers and just trying to fake it till you make it and figure it out. So that definitely served me well. But I think my sort of itinerant upbringing served me the best in that I kept having this longing for home. And that's what ultimately drove me to start baking as a young child. Because when I was living in Medan, Sumatra, and I had a craving for a cupcake or a brownie or a chocolate chip cookie, I couldn't go to the corner store and buy them. So I spent hours and hours in the kitchen with my mom baking these treats that I missed from home. And so baking and food for me is it's always represented much more than what it is. It's really been a sense of belonging and connection for me. And that sort of set the stage for my future career, unbeknownst to me at the time, because I was being raised by a father who was a corporate lawyer. I didn't have a model for entrepreneurship growing up. I really just thought I was going to follow this corporate path. I went to the right boarding school. I went to the right college. I was recruited into investment banking. And I was following this corporate track thinking that it would bring me security and success because that's what I had been led to believe. And then cut to the dot-com bust of 2000 when everyone I knew who was in, finance and tech in San Francisco, which is where I was living at the time, was out of a job, including myself. I was on the couch. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I realized that what I'd been led to believe wasn't true at all. I didn't have security and I didn't have success. I was down and out on the couch without a plan. And then not long after that, 9/11 happened, and really led me down this path, sort of a self-epiphany, so to speak, where I realized that life was too fleeting to follow someone else's version of success, and I really needed to find my own authentic path. And so that's what got me back in the kitchen. I ended up trading my banking blazer for an apron. I ended up going to pastry school, and that was a real detour from what everyone had expected from me, and frankly, what I'd expected from myself. I thought I was going to be on this corporate path and, sail off into the sunset in suits and heels. And here I was getting my hands dirty in dough, in beautiful ingredients, in this little pastry school kitchen every day. And I loved it. Anything was on the table. And so I allowed myself the grace of just putting one foot in front of the other and doing what felt good in the time. So when I started pastry school, I knew not much, but I knew that that felt good. If you think about what traditional cupcake decorations were, they were either those standard sprinkles or a plastic cupcake pick. And neither of those was going to do at all because I had reinvented the cupcake. Here was this modern, upscale, aspirational cupcake, and I needed a decoration to match. So I worked on a lot of different ideas, but ultimately landed on this double dot that looks almost like a bullseye. And it's made out of sugar paste, and we call it the modern dot. And these dots just became synonymous with Sprinkles cupcakes. My goal was that if you were to look at a table, a buffet of desserts, that you would be able to pick out a Sprinkles cupcake immediately. And that's what that Modern Dot did. So there was no option for investment when we were first getting started. And we knew that. Coming from the finance world, we knew that. So we pooled our resources. We had a little bit of money from just, a couple of bonuses. And, Charles had worked at a company where there'd been some liquidity with some stock options, but nothing crazy. I mean, we were renting a duplex in West Hollywood. We had a very used, often breaking down car. And we were eating Trader Joe's salads for dinner every night versus our friends who are now on this corporate track and getting promotions and going on beautiful trips and going out to dinner. We decided we were going to make the sacrifice for our longer term goals. And so we took the financial risk. We took the reputational risk. We worked hard. We sacrificed. And everyone said we were nuts. But then sure enough, when we opened to lines out the door, that's when all the investors came crawling out of the woodwork, desperate to invest, desperate to franchise. And we said, where were you guys 6 months ago? We don't need you now. And so we just went ahead and bootstrapped and cash flowed. For 8 years, we scaled the business across the country, came up with a cupcake ATM. And it wasn't until 2012, we opened our doors first in 2005, that we sold a majority stake to private equity. Charles and I were the only two names on the cap. There was a moment where we considered franchising, not because we wanted to, but because people were really desperate for us to.
Right.
And sure enough, as soon as we were successful, imitation followed. Cupcake shops that looked a lot like ours started popping up everywhere. It was really frustrating for us because it just felt like we'd spent so much time, taken all the risk, and people were just sort of copy pasting our idea. and it felt like they were taking something from me. And I got a little distracted by that. But there's no point in getting distracted. You have to focus on what you're doing. And I think there was just a fear with franchising that even though we could go a lot faster, there's only a few little details that make the difference between an exceptional cupcake and an exceptional experience and an average and forgettable one. And so being the perfectionist control freaks that we were, we decided to do it our way, which was the slow way. And then also because Charles and I really thought of ourselves as those 0 to 1 people, the creation of the brand, the building of the team, but the scaling part, the operational part. Listen, we did it to 11 stores across the country. We did a good job, but we really didn't want to have founder syndrome where we felt like nobody else could raise our baby. And there had to be other people out there who were much more well operationally versed to scale from 11 to 50. And so for those reasons, personal and business, we went through a process. We found a private equity firm who loved our brand, believed in our brand, and they were the right partner for us. So even though it was something that I wanted and that I was prepared for, I still didn't know how hard it was going to be for me to let go of my first baby.